Hello, today's May 30th, 2025. Today I'm going over my Senate election predictions for next year, as well as talking about some of my future plans on the channel, because I haven't been uploading that much recently, but I did upload last month. So I'm trying to get this out sometime before I go on my trip this weekend. Um, so yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for clicking on the video. What you see right now is a history of my predictions that I've done on this channel. I'd say pretty accurate. I mean, better than you're going to find on any other channel. So try to get this, at least my main channel, to 1,000. That'd be kind of cool. And yeah, thanks for so much for clicking on this video. We're going to talk about it. Obviously, I have, yeah, I'll get into it. But what we have here on this color in Minnesota would mean safe Democratic. That would mean 15 points or more to the left. This would mean 7 points to 14.9%. That would be likely Democrat. This would be lean Democrat, 2 to 6.9%. And anything under 2%, I would call a tilt state, which means it could go like either way. Lean, usually I have that as in, oh, if I say lean somewhere and on election day it barely goes to the other candidate, I'm like, okay, that's not crazy surprising, but, I didn't think it would happen. So yeah, same with the Republicans. It's 15, 7, 2, and under 2. I kind of do it a little different than everyone else. I think it kind of shows how much they're going to a party more accurately. I think 1.5% shouldn't be considered lean. I think that's a very close race that could be just slightly different in alternate situations. So yeah. But a lot of new stuff has come out. A lot of more consistent data has come out about, how do people think Trump's doing? It seems like it's around a -8 to -12 kind of ratio, which, still 10 points better than Biden's. So that's kind of, I wouldn't say it's that bad considering, you can literally sabotage the economy, but still have that amount of support. And I think that's good for the Republican Party. And again, voter registration isn't really, all of 2024 and 2023, it was kind of shifting a lot towards Republicans, like very consistently, like, wow, Democrats need to be worried. Now it's like, okay, they're kind of still on the same ground they were in 2024. It's kind of slowing down, but they still need to get out more voters, and they need to do better with younger voters than they did next year. And we're kind of going to have to see how that goes, and I don't know how it's going to go. But yeah, I have a lot of interesting takes here. Last time it was kind of like, okay, how's Georgia gonna go? Is Brian Kemp gonna run? Is the Attorney General gonna run? And who's gonna be leading? And right now, Marjorie Taylor Greene's doing that. And you saw Republicans, kind of sabotage their Senate race in 2022 directly with Herschel Walker instead of picking someone better for the job. And obviously, you could just not pick a candidate that has that much baggage with them, like Mark Robinson. Republicans clearly didn't want to win North Carolina's governor race or just didn't care. And then all that stuff came out that he wins the primary, and then more stuff comes out, and wow, he loses by like, how much did he lose by? At least 8%. I think he lost by like 13. I don't remember because it was called so early on election night, and on election night I was like, once Texas was called, I kind of was disappointed because I knew my predictions for the presidential race were not that good. On the contrary, Senate races were pretty dead on accurate. But yeah, let's get started here. South Dakota, Wyoming, Idaho, Montana, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia. Those should all be safe Republican states, no matter really what happens. I'd say South Carolina. Let's just do South Carolina. We might as well, right? If you're wondering for some of these, Nebraska, I think Osborne's running again. Kansas is one of the only like major left-shifting Republican states that Democrats could have hope of in 20 years. I might do a whole video on Kansas alone because it's really interesting. It didn't even really shift to the right that much in 2024, which I think is a big eye-opener considering Democrats won that governor race 2 times in a row, and Senate races were at likely levels. So yeah, I think Kansas is always going to be an interesting state, along with Utah. This kind of area is going to be pretty interesting for Democrats in the next 10, 15 years. But again, Kansas not really actually in danger of going blue overall, especially in the Senate race, unless there's some major turn. I mean, obviously, yeah, there was just a poll that came out in Iowa that has it like a toss-up race. I think there was a Democrat leading by 2 in Iowa. That's not going to happen. Joni Ernst, I think that's the one that's up for re-election here. She's not really doing a great job right now as trying to get people back on her side because she's kind of got a lot of haters in her own party. Today, just as of recording this like 2 hours ago, she's defending Medicaid cuts and saying that everyone is going to die. That's what she said. So they don't really. I mean, obviously, you really just want to avoid talking about cutting people's Medicaid and Medicare. But okay, this is why I'm kind of like, okay, they can kind of sabotage themselves, but it doesn't matter because they'll still always be in contention. Like it doesn't matter. But a Democrat's 80 years old, and they're like, wow, we need to flip the whole government. Sorry, I'm a little off here, but let me do the safe Democrat ones, which really isn't much, by the way. Probably Illinois. It might be in that likely 13, 14 point area. I know single digits for Biden, but it's going to be a year with higher Democratic turnout. Like it's going to be closer to 2018, but Democrats probably still won't win the Senate. Oregon could be or should be safe for Democrats. I'm going to go ahead and say Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and honestly, that's it for Democrats. They only get 4 safe seats because I'm going to give them Delaware, New Jersey, New Hampshire. Let me take New Hampshire back real quick. And then I'm going to give them Minnesota at likely. And should be Virginia right now. We haven't really seen any polls here. But Virginia, the fact that, Harris still won it. And we're kind of on this, and Democrats are kind of on this momentum right now. I don't really see, like, unless there's a really good candidate, but I think the candidate that would probably win is running for governor in Virginia right now. And they might not win that, so they could run for Senate. Actually, in my opinion, best case for Democrats, best case scenario is that they lose the Republican. They lose to the Republican in November this year, and then they run, and then they don't. Then that means they can't run for Senate. If that makes sense at all to anyone, I hope that makes sense. Like obviously, it was better that Brian Kemp ran for governor in 2022 because if he ran for Senate, he would have won. But right now, Ossoff's. Oh yeah, that was my likely. If it is going to be Marjorie Taylor Greene, Ossoff is going to win by like 7 or 8 points. Georgia, again, one of those states that I'm considering how Arizona shifted a lot to the right in 2024 and Georgia didn't, and you saw the areas that still shifted to the left in Georgia. It's all Atlanta that still stayed rock solid from 2020 or moved to the left. So if you're a Democrat and you're in Georgia, I'd still feel very optimistic about Democrats about Ossoff winning, especially if they. I mean, it shouldn't even matter which Republican it is here. Ossoff's very favored. He's probably one of the more well-known Democratic figures, and he's going to be getting a lot of money for Georgia. I don't think he should have anything to worry about. If I had to pick one swing race that I'm very confident about, it's Georgia going to the Democrats. Again, just historically, the last 5 years, you see how everything helped. Since 2004, you look at everything shifts every year. You just obviously it's an unpredictable thing. We don't know the exact candidates yet. This is going purely off of Jon Ossoff versus Marjorie Taylor Greene, and Jon Ossoff had like an 18-point lead against her last time. He actually had a safe dark blue lead against her, which isn't going to happen. It'll narrow up. But again, Republicans are going to do what they did in 2022 and in 2020 and sabotage 3 Senate races in a row. I don't know why they like to do this here, but this is what they've done several times. They did it with Carrie Lake. They did it, like I said, with Mark Robinson. And it's really weird. It doesn't make sense that they need this kind of incompetence to run because they always lose. But again, we'll see how Georgia goes. Obviously, I expect it to change. I think Jon Ossoff wins a minimum of 3 or 4 points. Minimum. But I think he'll win by like 8 or 9. So yeah, that's at least something for Democrats here. They're not losing many seats here already, but again, I should also do the likely Republican seats again. These are like basically safe seats, but not quite. You got Kansas, Mississippi. Florida's safe. My bad. Florida's a safe state. And Ohio should also be safe as well. I'm going to move Iowa back down to likely because I don't think it's actually going to be in contention, but I do believe that the polls and Joni Ernst's entire unfavorability. She ran a lot under Trump. A lot of the statewide Iowans like for the House races and state Senate races and stuff have been running under. There was, I mean, if you're also seeing how these special elections are turning out, Democrats are turning out crazy high over Republicans in shifting races. There was a race in New York that shifted over 50 points from just like 7 months ago to the left. And obviously that's not going to happen everywhere. If that happened everywhere, Democrats would win everything. And that's not going to happen because turnout for Republicans will be higher. But I do think Democrats should be at least inspired and trying to build up momentum that they're getting from how bad this economy, not actually that bad right now, but the fact they're doing stuff to actively, punch it in the gut for no seeming reason. I think it's kind of interesting that it's kind of working. He still has a better approval than Biden did, so I don't know. And I don't really want to hear like stuff over the bias thing, because if again, like I've showed my historic prediction levels, and I've always kind of been biased in a sense, but usually pretty accurate. And usually in the past when I've been inaccurate, it's been towards the Republicans' favor. So I just want to get that out. Like, if you genuinely believe tariffs are going to help this country, then you shouldn't be on political analysis videos at all, because it doesn't make sense. And even if it did help the country, a majority of the country does not agree with tariffs right now, and that's just consistently proven, and at least in polls right now. So it's generically accurate. So yeah, again, just don't be on the video if you don't agree with that. I don't get the point of trying to go on here and have conversations when you can't handle that. So yeah, next I'm gonna do lean for Michigan. If Pete Buttigieg ran in Michigan, this is another thing. I think that the very fact Pete Buttigieg is not running for Michigan Senate is just not proof, but basically he's going to run for president again. And as of today, he's up by 13 points against Harris and AOC. I think when you look at how he's not quote unquote auditioning, going on news networks, going into enemy territory, like those 50 versus 1 videos, and just demolishing everyone in debates, and he's able to stay clear and concise and get his point across. If Democrats want someone who can get their point across without even one slip up, he's one of the most precise speakers I've ever seen. One of the best speakers in the entire Democratic Party, and if it really is going to come down to that, then I would go for that. I think that, especially, he doesn't even, I don't know, it's going to be really interesting seeing a Buttigieg ticket, but we'll see how that goes if it does. Harris probably is going to run for California governor, it's looking like, so I don't expect her to really do much more than that for the rest of her political career. We'll see how the Biden administration's looked at in 10 years. That's kind of how you're going to see Harris running again. I mean, as a Democrat, I personally do prefer, I've made a video about this, so it's not really a secret. I do prefer Harris over any other Democrat. I think it was a very good campaign, but if I was going to pick anyone else that could do the job right, and has been involved in in a presidential cabinet, and is able to go in enemy territory and not make a fool of themselves, I would pick Pete Buttigieg. He does all of the things. He checks all of the boxes. And if it comes down to, he's a gay man, then we don't deserve it, I guess, right? So yeah, I'm also going to have Colorado and New Mexico as likely Senate seats. I'm sorry, I forgot to do that. But yeah, well, that's pretty much given. I feel like if you're surprised about that, it's kind of weird, but I'm going to do lean Nebraska again. It's kind of on that line with Kansas. I might make a video about, are Democrats screwed, or Democrats are screwed for 10 years. Here's what they need to do, and then they need to push in these states like Nebraska, Kansas, Utah, and yes, that is my genuine belief. If they need to keep up their Senate seats, and they need to keep up winning population, then yes, they do still need to go for Texas. Texas might seem like a lost cause, but what else are they supposed to do? They're not going to hold on in the Rust Belt forever. We've seen that. I mean, it's getting closer and closer every time. They lost it in 2024. I mean, if the Rust Belt does go back to being blue, I'd be very surprised if it came back to like being that strong blue. Something that Democrats said in 2020 that made me very upset was, we're going to rebuild the blue wall, because that means they have no actual plans. It means they need to strive by and stay on the fence of these states. They shouldn't be needing to do that. They need to actually do better than that. It's really concerning that they think they can rebuild the blue wall, and I don't know if they still believe that or not. But if they do, then someone else needs to be the head of the DNC. And I knew there is a new head of the DNC, which that might make a whole video about that too. David Hogg, they're gonna revote, it looks like, on him, but it's really complicated why, and I read it was because of a quality issue in like the cabinet of the DNC. I don't know. I haven't looked into it, but if that's true, then that needs to be a whole extra thing. We cannot disclude white men from being in charge of stuff at this moment in our history, because the whole point, the whole reason Democrats lose any elections is because of white men. They won like almost every demographic besides white men, and they didn't get landslided, but they still lost by like 2 points. And it was really just if they did 5 points better with white men, they would just landslide. It's just crazy to me that it comes down to that. And I think with Democrats, one more thing I'm going to say before I finish these predictions off is Democrats, at least Harris, did better with older voters in at least southern areas and more poor areas in 2024. Something that I think is pretty interesting is that Democrats don't need to focus on them now. Just getting rid of Social Security or cutting important programs for elders, just all that kind of stuff. That's kind of what's always been in the past, that where Democrats don't. That's why they haven't gone for older voters. They trust that older voters will kind of understand things that are going on, and that actually worked in 2024. Not estimated. They did good in 2024 with older voters based on what they were expected to do, and I think that's something Democrats can take with them and run and try and just, again, the young voters. It's kind of interesting that these young voters are shifting like that. And I said in my last video that them shifting to the right doesn't necessarily mean anything, because that kind of keeps happening, where every 4 years is a different wave to a different party. So it goes back and forth. So it kind of makes sense that these people, these new voters, are most one party. So if it shifts back to Republicans in 2026, or no, if it shifts back to Democrats in 2026 and shifts back to Republicans in 2030, and then again does that every 4 years, and yeah, it's not really something Democrats need to worry about. They just need to do better with generic groups, i.e. white people. So these next ones are kind of where, okay, Democrats need to win the Senate. This is how they do it. I do have them winning 3 of these seats, but again, they need to win all 5 of them. They need to win Alaska, Texas, North Carolina, New Hampshire, and Maine. How do you do this? It's really complicated. Maine, they should win. I have them winning 2 or 3 points against Susan Collins. I won't trust a single poll that comes out of this state at all over the next 2 years. I just got an alert. You know what? Just for anyone wondering, I just got an alert. Trump does not rule out pardoning Sean Diddy Combs. Yeah, he's pardoned a lot of guilty people in the last 3 days. I think he just relearned that he's allowed to do that. But yeah, I guess they're gonna pardon Diddy. Okay, back to what I was saying. Democrats need to win all 5 of these states. I have them beating Susan Collins by a couple points, but again, Maine in 2020 was consistently okay. I think it was Gideon. Gideon was the person running against her. I remember that, but not some of the people running this year. Kind of interesting. But they said, oh, Susan, Gideon's going to run here, and she's going to win by 7-8 points, and that was consistent for a year. And then she loses by a lot in Maine. Almost double digits, I think she lost by. Democrats can't really do that again. Susan Collins, they can really just use her voting history against her in Maine. Maine is a Democratic state. It's not crazy, but I think, again, any state that Harris won, Democrats should be able to increase their margins on in 2022. And I'm hoping, for Democrats' sake, that they're going to be able to pull and also Brooks and do what she did with Larry Hogan. Go as in, Larry Hogan's more evil than you actually think. he tried to restrict abortion 1,000 times, but the only reason you didn't see this is because it got overturned by your Democratic legislature, and we're here to protect you. And that kind of is how you're gonna have to do that in these Democratic states. And again, I think that's kind of what he had to do in Georgia. Like, oh, Brian Kemp isn't as middle line as you thought he was. So I think that's going to be interesting, and it's really just going to be a replica and learning after also Brooks on that. But also Brooks should have won Maryland by more. If you wanted to say that that strategy was effective, I wouldn't say really. And like I said, because she won by like 10, 15 points less than Harris did, that's concerning for people, because if you run 10, 15 points behind the presidential candidate, you're not going to win Maine. You're just not going to, because in Maryland, where it's a 30-point state, doing that in Maine, which is like a plus 10 state, you'd lose by 5 to Susan Collins. So, like, again, like I said, you can't really predict Maine. It's always one of those erratic states, but I wouldn't say that I'd be surprised if either candidate won. New Hampshire, right now, Democrats just have a solid couple-point lead here. There's nothing interesting going on in New Hampshire. It's just just a generically Democratic state. It's pretty boring. And I don't really expect Republicans to win here anytime in the next 10 years. But again, we get closer to this, we'll see it. Some of the best pollsters of 2024 had Bolduc winning here. I think it was Bolduc. I apologize if that's wrong. The Republican candidate here, they had them winning by up to 3. I think 8. One had them winning by like 8, but it was around 1 to 3 points. And it was like, oh, some of the best pollsters of 2024. And so people who are asking why I was iffy about them in 2024 in my data, that's exactly why. Is because we don't see that happen. We don't see that happen often, where polls are off by double digits, and I can't in my right mind call them an accurate pollster if they're off by double digits in 3 or 4 Senate races. I think it was Rasmussen that had it was Trey Folger that had New Hampshire going red in 2022. They had Georgia going red in 2022. They had Arizona going red in 2022. They had Nevada going red in 2022. All of those were wrong. The only one they got right was North Carolina. I think the only state that I got wrong. The only one they got right was North Carolina. The only state I got wrong in 2022 was Nevada. I thought independents would split more to the right, and they did for the governor race, but not for their senator. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I think it was Cortez Masto. Was it that one? I hope. Or was it Rosen? I don't remember. My apologies. Next is going to be North Carolina. Roy Cooper should be running here as of right now. That's what it looks like. If he's not running here, then I'll have him move it to tilt. But most of the environment and what we're seeing in North Carolina, where that older voter shift towards Harris was pretty strong, like I was bringing up earlier. If you have that on top of independents splitting more, on top of Republicans losing their momentum, on top of Trump not winning here by that much, if Democrats just sit here 3 points better than they did last year, and right now, as of the last generic ballot poll, they're up 9 nationally. They're not going to win by 9, but if they even won by 2 or 3, they should win this race here, at least on just a basic level. It's probably not going. Again, I'm kind of going off of ifs right now. When we get closer, and I keep saying when we get closer, I'll have more accurate predictions for you. But again, if you told me in a year that this was my exact map, I wouldn't be surprised. I had this exact map in 2022. I had the exact same map a year before the election that actually happened. So sometimes you'll be surprised about how little changes. Yeah, things are getting kind of predictable. I predict Republicans to sabotage themselves in Georgia and Arizona, and I think that they'll outdo what is predicted of them in the Rust Belt, but not win all the Rust Belt states. So that kind of happens every time. Next, I'm going to do Texas, lean probably 5 or 6 points. Again, good for Democrats because of how much closer it was than 2024, but also bad for Democrats because it's not blue and they lose the Senate based off of Texas here alone. I'm going to go with the same thing for Alaska, one of the most fast-shifting blue states in the whole country. along with Nebraska, Kansas, Utah. It kind of I feel like not people are not taking keeping track of that. Like, people need to be paying attention to where Democrats can improve of outside of the Rust Belt. And obviously, you still need to win Michigan and Minnesota here, but you need to also be like, can we finally push someone in Kansas or Alaska? They got to go all in eventually. They can't. It's not going to just fall to them. They have to actually focus on values for independents and Democrats in Kansas to get that momentum out. And once they finally saw how bad Trump performed in 2016 in Georgia, and then they focused on it a little bit, it became kind of close. And after Stacey Abrams' race, and they're like, oh, let's go all in on Georgia, and then Biden won it. So yeah, I mean, in Alaska, again, almost an entirely independent voter population that just leans to the left. It's not a red state. It's not a blue state, in my opinion, either. Paltola won here, then they lost here. Hard right Republican loses their primary against Lisa Murkowski because they're too far to the right. So, worst case scenario, I actually say Alaska is one of the only states that is middle, actually independent, or middle conservative, or whatever. The only other state that matches, I believe, from what I know, the amount of independent percentage voters is Nevada. But again, when you look at voter registrations, that's happening everywhere. So the more Republicans move to the right, the better Democrats are going to have it in 10, 15 years, when independents are basically just Democrats today. But yeah, that was my rant/prediction video. I want to do a governor video next, but I'm going to learn more about those races before I post that video. I won't post this video on the 30th, but hopefully before I go on my trip. And thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.